Hi, friends. I wanted to take this time to make sure that you really understand the story of Retrieved Reformation. So if you'd like to read the story on your own, you're able to do that, no problem. Remember, you're annotating as you read. If you would like to read the first part of the story along with me, you're welcome to do so. I'll be offering some insights and some information that would probably help you to understand the story. A Retrieved Reformation by O. Henry. A guard came to the prison shoe shop where Jimmy Valentine was assiduously stitching uppers and escorted him to the front office. There the warden handed Jimmy his pardon, which had been signed that morning by the governor. Jimmy took it in a tired kind of way. He had served nearly 10 months of a 4-year sentence. He had expected to stay only about 3 months at the longest. When a man with as many friends on the outside as Jimmy Valentine had is received in the stir, it's hardly worthwhile to cut his hair. That whole first paragraph introduces us to the main character, Jimmy Valentine, a criminal. He's in jail. And it says here that he's only had to serve 10 months of a 4-year sentence. That's because he has a lot of friends on the outside. So they say that because he has so many friends in high places, it's hardly even worthwhile to cut his hair because a guy like him is going to be pardoned or let out because he has such powerful friends. "Now, Valentine," said the warden, "you'll go out in the morning. Brace up. Make a man of yourself. You're not a bad fellow at heart. Stop cracking safes and live straight." "Me?" said Jimmy in surprise. "Why, I never cracked a safe in my life." So the warden is telling him, look, stop cracking safes. Now, what is cracking safes? Cracking safes is breaking into locked safes. And Jimmy responds, "Me?" just like somebody who is trying to evade guilt. And he says, "I never cracked a safe in my life." True to the criminal, you never admit your guilt. "Oh, no," laughed the warden. "Of course not. Let's see now. How was it you happened to get sent up on that Springfield job? Was it because you wouldn't prove an alibi for fear of compromising somebody in extremely high-toned society? Or was it simply a case of a mean old jury that had it in for you? It's always one or the other with you innocent victims." "Me?" said Jimmy, still blankly virtuous. "Why, warden, I never was in Springfield in my life." Again, the warden is asking him why he's getting out so early. And Jimmy, again, answers, "I don't know what you're talking about. I've never been in Springfield. I've never cracked a safe. I've never committed a crime." And the warden gets frustrated with him and says, "Take him back, Cronin," said the warden, "and fix him up with outgoing clothes. Unlock him at 7 in the morning and let him come to the bullpen. Better think over my advice, Valentine." Now, in the old times, when you were released from jail, they gave you a suit of clothes and a little bit of money so that when you were released from jail, you could go out into society and fend for yourself, at least for a few days. At 7:15 on the next morning, Jimmy stood in the warden's outer office. He had on a suit of the villainously fitting ready-made clothes and a pair of the stiff, squeaky shoes that the state furnishes to its discharged compulsory guests. The clerk handed him a railroad ticket and the $5 bill with which the law expected him to rehabilitate himself into good citizenship and prosperity. The warden gave him a cigar and shook hands. Valentine 9762 was chronicled on the books, pardoned by governor, and Mr. James Valentine walked out into the sunshine. So in this scene, we have him showing up at the warden's office with his new clothes. He's given $5 and a cigar, and he's supposed to leave the jail and create a new life for himself. Disregarding the song of the birds, the waving green trees, and the smell of the flowers, Jimmy headed straight for a restaurant. There he tasted the first sweet joys of liberty in the shape of a broiled chicken and a bottle of white wine, followed by a cigar, a grade better than the one the warden had given him. From there, he proceeded leisurely to the depot. He tossed a quarter into the hat of a blind man sitting by the door and boarded his train. 3 hours set him down in a little town near the state line. He went to the cafe of one Mike Dolan and shook hands with Mike, who was alone behind the bar. "Sorry we couldn't make it sooner, Jimmy, my boy," said Mike. "But we had that protest from Springfield to buck against, and the governor nearly balked. Feeling all right?" "Fine," said Jimmy. "Got my key?" And so Jimmy leaves the jail, and he goes right to a restaurant to have a beautifully yummy meal. And he uses some of his $5 to buy a better cigar than the one that Warden had given. And he's giving out quarters to the blind men at the train. This is evidence that Jimmy is not worried about what he's going to do to make his living. He's not conserving any money. He's making it straight back to a cafe. And the proprietor of this cafe, Mike Dolan, tells Jimmy, "Sorry we had a hard time getting you out of jail sooner." And Jimmy says, "No worries. You've got my key." He got his key and he went upstairs, unlocking the door of a room at the rear. Everything was just as he had left it. There on the floor was still Ben Price's collar button that had been torn from that eminent detective's shirt band when they had overpowered Jimmy to arrest him. Now, this is important. We meet this character, Ben Price, and he is a detective. He's an eminent detective, so he's an important detective. And the night that Jimmy was arrested, evidently there had been a struggle when Ben Price was trying to arrest Jimmy, and one of the buttons of Ben Price's shirt was still on the floor. Pulling out from the wall a folding bed, Jimmy slid back a panel in the wall and dragged out a dust-covered suitcase. He opened this and gazed fondly at the finest set of burglar's tools in the East. It was a complete set, made of specially tempered steel, the latest designs in drills, punches, braces, and bits, jimmies, clamps, and augers, with 2 or 3 novelties invented by Jimmy himself, in which he took pride. Over $900 they had cost him to have made at a place where they make such things for the profession. In this paragraph here, we learn that Jimmy drags out his safe-cracking tools. It is an extremely highly specialized set of tools that he uses to crack safes or break into the safes that banks have. And O. Henry down here, it says that he had them made at a blank because, of course, criminals never tell where they have such things made for their profession, quote unquote. In half an hour, Jimmy went downstairs and through the cafe. He was now dressed in tasteful and well-fitting clothes and carried his dusted and cleaned suitcase in his hand. "Got anything on?" asked Mike Dolan genially. "Me?" said Jimmy in a puzzled tone. "I don't understand. I'm representing the New York Amalgamated Short Snap Biscuit Cracker and Frazzled Wheat Company." This statement delighted Mike to such an extent that Jimmy had to take a seltzer and milk on the spot. He never touched hard drinks. So Jimmy gets dressed in his fine clothes that have been waiting for him at home. He gets his suitcase filled with tools. And Mike, when he goes downstairs, the owner of the bar says, "Hey, you got anything on?" Meaning, are you planning to pull a job? Are you planning to go and rob a bank, break into the safe? And Jimmy says again, see the pattern? "Me," said Jimmy. And he makes up some crazy wisecrack name of a business that he might, pretend to be a part of. A week after the release of Valentine 9762, There was a neat job of safe burglary done in Richmond, Indiana, with no clue to the author. A scant $800 was all that was secured,